Hey everybody, hope you're doing awesome today. In this video, I'm going to share about something that has been one of my biggest struggles as a musician, and that is sight reading. It's always been something that's so intimidating because I would see other musicians who could just sight read through things, and it seemed like a whole separate language to me. And so it's really taken me years to have an understanding, and I just kind of wanted to break down some of the biggest things that were like aha moments to me. Oh, I can do this, anyone can do this. And so the first thing I want to start with is just application. Every day when we're starting out, it's like learning how to speak or write. It's a whole language in and of itself. And when a child is young, they need to be speaking every day to ingrain it in themselves. So when we're reading these things, we need to start out at a level where it's very easy for us to get through it and just do it for like 15 to 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. And you will be shocked at the amount of growth that you have over time. And before I go any farther, I just want to talk about a few rules in regard to sight reading. Whenever we sight read, we want to analyze our piece, see any troubled spots or things we need to be aware of, and we need to adjust our tempo to that. So if you see 16th notes or a challenging run or a modulation, think about what kind of timing do I need to stay in tempo to perform that section. And also, we never stop. In sight reading, if I was to play through this, and this is just a piece I'm using it as an example, if I stopped to see what came next, very obvious. Whereas, check this out, I'm going to intentionally make a mistake. So if I'm playing through it, and then let's say I make a mistake going back to it, it's actually less obvious than if I was to stop and make my place up. So don't be afraid about making mistakes when sight reading. It's actually part of it, believe it or not, and that was something that took me a long time to get over in my head, and you have to learn how to adjust and play through those mistakes. All right, so I'm just going to quickly talk about what sight reading is now. In music, we have a couple different categories of learning, and one of that's performance. So you learn a piece of music that a composer wrote, and you perform it the way it was intended, the way he wrote it. And so we look at the phrasing and the articulation, and we memorize it, and then we perform it without music. So it's totally committed to memory. And then another asset of music is the theory, understanding what's going on. So chord analysis, rhythmic analysis, knowing what the key signature is, those things. And then, what was the other one? Oh, improvisation. So our ability to just see a chord progression. So for example, I can see, looking at this measure, it's just a G major chord. So I could literally, not even reading this, see that my right hand's playing 16th notes, my left hand's playing 8th notes. For that whole measure, I can see that because I know my music theory. So I could just improvise. Pretty similar. I see that this changes to an A minor here with a G in the bass. So I'm going to keep my G in the bass and just play an A minor chord. I don't have to play what's written as long as I'm staying true to that style of the accompaniment. I'm kind of making a shortcut using improvisation here, but no one would know. So I would just simply, let me make something up different. Very similar, but it's not what's written on the page. And right here, it has a, it goes to the D major, but the dominant chord, so that it can go back to the G. It's actually called a 6/4 cadence. It's that kind of thing where it has the root in the bass. That kind of, I can't remember the technical name of it, man. But it's a, man, it's gonna bother me. I'm gonna look it up right after this, and I'll probably write text in the video. It's been a minute since I've been in theory class. So yeah, where you have the 5 over the 1, and then you go to the 1. That's the kind of modulation that we're using there. It has sort of a cadence to get back home. And I can see that because I have a very strong knowledge of my theory, so it's easy for me to analyze these first 4 measures in a way that I could sight read through them very easily. One of the things to take note of is the phrasing. So this piece is in 6/4, which was really challenging for me at first because it's like, it's not a compound meter. It's still a simple meter. We count it in 2s, but it feels like 3s. And I noticed that my right hand is always playing 16th notes. So I have 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 4. And that's the end of a phrase. So I will play it. That's the end of my phrase, and now a new phrase starts, which is actually just, I can see it's the same thing over again. I'll dig down to where the piece gets a little more challenging on the second page. And so we need to have a really good chord analysis understanding if we want to be good sight readers. And this is an accompaniment. So this is an accompaniment piece that you play along with somebody else. And so for this first measure, I can see that in the left hand, I'm playing a B, F sharp, B, and those are the only 3 notes I play, which is quite often the case actually, because music follows chord progressions. So in this case, I could either, my left hand right now has no quality. All I have is the perfect fifth and the octave. So my left hand could be a B major chord, it could be a B minor chord, but we'll have to look at the right hand to see. So the right hand, I have a D, F sharp, B. Ooh, very obviously a B minor, which it's a first inversion where it is, but if I just did B, D, F sharp, boom, B minor. And looking at that, that's the whole measure. So if I was sight reading this and I didn't want to copy exactly what's on the page, I would just keep my 8th note pattern in the left hand, as well along with a 16th note pattern in the right hand, doing whatever I want. Which just so happens to be what it is. Let me think of something different. That's different than what's written, but it kind of would do the same thing. So for this, if I was reading through it, this is what's actually written. Next measure, I notice this is what my right hand does. I have a D, G, B, D, which this, it's got a B, D, B in the bass. This is just a first inversion G major chord. And the reason why it's a first inversion, because in my bass, it would be root position if the G was down here, but the B is down here, which gives it a first inversion quality. And I can see that all of my tones for the next 3 beats are all just notes of the G major chord. And that's the whole 3 beats. The next one, I can quickly analyze, this is a C sharp diminished chord with the octave at the top of it. And in my left hand, I have a B flat, D, B flat. The only reason I hesitated because I'm thinking of the spelling. Ah, cool. It's a B flat fully diminished chord. It's just odd because, I guess it makes sense, but this is notated as a C sharp. If it was a B fully diminished, this should be notated as D flat. I don't really understand that necessarily in this context, but sometimes you just read through it. I have a C sharp diminished over B flat, or you could think of it as a B flat fully diminished 7th. And I have just these 3 notes, and that's the whole measure right there. And believe it or not, once you see these patterns, music becomes so easy to memorize and read through. This next measure, I can see that I have a C, D, A, G. And then my left hand is just A, D, A, which this is another one of those instances where we have the one chord is a D major, which we're approaching using the 5th. So it's a over D. So this is where your music theory comes in handy. We have an A minor chord actually to the D major. That's how we're approaching it. So just analyzing that quickly, I can see that that's the case. So the way it would go. And then I go to my D major chord now. And right here, I'm back to the A minor chord, but wait a second. That's my chord. Looks like it's a F major first inversion actually. To a B diminished, A flat diminished. It's the same instance as the last time where I have a B diminished in one hand over the A flat. Ah, interesting. So now I can see how the chord progression is descending downwards. Alright, so now all this part, I just analyzed it, which all this you have to learn how to do in real time, which I just recommend. As far as music theory goes, learn all your scales, learn all your key signatures, start experimenting with your triad chords. You should know every triad chord, whether it's major, minor, diminished, or augmented, and be able to understand them inside and out with all their inversions, which I know sounds like a huge thing. It took me years to learn all that, unfortunately. So if I was to just take a C chord, we have a root, first inversion, second inversion, root, and then you have to be able to do that with all of them. Minor, first inversion, second inversion, root. Diminished, you got to be able to understand how all these things work. Augmented, Just like that. And then the same with the 7th chords and other extensions. So I have the C major, and then be able to do all of those inversions. Same with the dominant, minor, etc. And so once you understand those things, sight reading becomes so simple because you can recognize the patterns very quickly. And then as far as the rhythms, being able to just see what the rhythms are, this one's actually very consistent, so that makes it very easy for you. All right, let's give it a try. So we're gonna go, I'm gonna take it from the top of this page. Why am I using my left hand? I'm left foot on my damper pedal. Then the D major. This is the F first inversion. Ah, hesitate. You can't hesitate. So yeah, etc. I was going at a tempo that I wouldn't normally do. I was playing a little faster. If I was sight reading this, I would actually take it a little bit slower so I can analyze it quicker. Yeah, let's look at the next page, see what we got. We start out on actually the phrase starts right here. And you get good at seeing where the end of phrases are the more music you look at. So I can tell that this passage is leading towards the theme that we did at the beginning of the piece. The viola part goes, or the cello, depending on who plays it. And I see that same theme right here, so that's how I know that it's kind of the, not recapitulation, it's just redoing the idea. So we have, I look at my hands, you don't want to look at your hands. I'm trying not to. See it. That's an E dominant or E major chord. And then we go to an A minor. Then just A minor with an F sharp. Back to the home. So I noticed I did make mistakes in there, but a lot of it's just playing through it. You won't notice those mistakes if you play through it. Let's see, these parts are kind of tricky looking. Here we're just doing an arpeggio upwards. 4 and 5 and 6 and 5. Oh, and then it ends. I did that wrong. Whoops. I played an E instead of a D, which if I was performing it wouldn't matter. If I was playing with my companies, I would just go right through that mistake. No one would ever know. But I played it with a D. Let's play it with that E. Yeah, very different quality. And then and 5 and 6 and 1. Mistakes, but just play through them. Cool. Yeah, so I hope that's helpful. The biggest takeaway is learn your music theory. It makes seeing these shapes and patterns so much easier. And even intervals. Whenever I'm reading these things, I don't always read the notes. For example, that's a C, E, A, C, A, but I can see that it's just a third up, octave up, third down. So I can quickly, without even really thinking about the notes, I know what the shape looks like. And it just repeats it over and over again. So this is actually a great example. I didn't even mean to pick this out. I was given this piece a couple days ago for a wedding I'm playing at. And so it's just what I needed to practice today anyway, so it worked out perfectly. What else? Yeah, we always want to be reading as horizontally as possible, not vertically. If we read vertically, that's when we get trapped. We just want to read, try and evaluate the whole measure at one time. Because usually our harmonic rhythm, that's like our changes, won't be every beat. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times the whole measure just kind of sits on the same chord, and that's where we use our improvisational skills. So if I was to improvise through this, I see I have 2 measures of G. I could do something totally different. Just in G. And I'm still in G, new measure. G. Now the A minor over G. now I changed the F sharp back to the G. Not playing what's on the page, but just making, here we go. Not playing what's on the page, but just playing kind of the idea. So that was just improvising through what I saw in there. It wasn't what was notated. If I wanted to play what was notated, I would just take a little bit slower of a pace. Another tip is I'm trying to get better at not looking, because that's what's the best. If you can just look at the music in your hand and instinctively know what to do. A couple tips I have for that I've been working on is just knowing where my hand is. When my hand feels like this, I know I'm around middle C, and then I know where like my higher C is. The C above that is right there. And another way that I find that is I know where the gaps in the keyboard are, so I know what 3 keys feels like, and this is what 2 keys feels like. So that's an F, C, F, C. And so those are kind of the ways to feel your way around the keyboard quickly. It's tougher in the left hand, so I know that if this would be my middle C, not looking at it, because I know what it feels like where it's at. And then lower C, there's an F, C. So if I want to play a C power chord, go up to the D. And if I want to go up to the G, I would feel for my 3 keys like that. So it's not, that process becomes quicker the more you do it, but feeling for your position on the keyboard. Yeah, and that stuff, that takes a long time. It's especially tough with jumps. A lot of this stuff is stepwise, which makes it much more simple for me to read through it. But yeah, it's just something you have to do every day. It's still not a strength of mine by any means, but the last couple months I've been consistently making myself do it, and I've been very, very happy with the progress. So I just wanted to make this to encourage anyone else out there who feels like they can't sight read. I promise you, you can. It's just something that you have to start incorporating every day. Study your theory, look for patterns, and then apply it. But my name is Jordan Evans, if I didn't say it at the beginning, and I'm a piano teacher, and I like to make videos about this stuff. As I learn it, I like to share it with you guys. So if you like this kind of stuff, be sure to subscribe and get in touch with me, and I'll see you guys next time.